In today's video, I'm going to be sharing my 2024 TBR. I sat down and really thought about the books that I wanted to include in my 2024 TBR. I go back and forth between creating TBRs. Like sometimes I'm like all for them and just having a list of books that I want to tackle. But then I also feel this amount of pressure to actually read the books on the list, even if I'm not in the mood for them. And it makes me not want to create TBRs anymore and to just strictly mood read. I don't know how I feel about it. Sometimes I'm all for them, sometimes I'm not. Maybe I just put an unnecessary amount of pressure on myself. With all that being said, I did come up with about 20-ish books that I definitely want to read in 2024. I don't know when I want to read them, but I know that at some point in the year I'll get to them. And these are books that are literally at the top of my list and are going to be my priority to read in the new year. Some of them are new releases, some of them are series that I just want to finish in the new year, and some of them are just books that I thought sounded really interesting. So yeah, let's get into it, shall we? So the first two books that I want to read in the new year is from the same author, Miss Emily Henry. I actually didn't read her new release this year, Happy Place. I just never got around to it during the summer. I had a whole newborn and I didn't want to read it in the fall and winter. So I'm saving it for spring, summer 2024. And then I know that she also has another book coming out in the new year called Funny Story, which is another summer beach read. And I love Emily Henry's books. They're just so perfect to read in the summer. And aside from People We Meet on Vacation, all of her books have been pure hits for me. I did like People We Meet on Vacation. I do think the writing in that book was great and I love the characters, Poppy and Alex. I still think about them. I just didn't like the trope. Happy Place, I believe, is second chance romance. It's about a couple who go on vacation every year with their friends, but this year they actually have been separated. They broke up, but they refuse to tell their friends because they want one last summer together. And during them spending summer together and spending time with their friends, they realize that their relationship might not be quite over yet. Pretty sure that's what that book is about. Funny Story is about a female main character who was dumped by her fiance. Her ex-fiance starts dating a woman who also just dumped her boyfriend, and somehow the main character and that ex-boyfriend of her new fiance's girlfriend, does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. The ex-boyfriend of the girl who's now dating her former fiance moves in together with the female main character, and they start spending time together, and they realize that maybe their separation from their significant others was actually a blessing in disguise. I don't know, I feel like I've never read a book like that before, and I think it would be really interesting and funny, as the title suggests. I love Emily Henry's banter. She writes her characters with such personalities, and I'm never bored with the dialogue. Sometimes when I read romance books, I am so bored with the dialogue, especially if the main characters are annoying, but I've never been bored with Emily Henry's characters, and I can't wait to read both of these books in the new year. The next two books that I want to read in 2024 is Fourth Wing and Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. This is the Empyrean, I believe, series. This series is basically a fantasy series, and it has taken the internet by storm. I have never seen a book be so popular. Well, I guess It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover also took the internet by storm a few years ago, but the way I have seen everyone talk about Fourth Wing is so shocking. Even people who don't normally read a ton have picked up Fourth Wing to read it just because they can't escape the internet from talking about it. But I am kind of nervous to actually read this series because it has been hyped so much. But I don't think I'm gonna hate it because it sounds amazing from what I've heard and from the reviews I've read. I will say that I've heard pretty bad reviews regarding Iron Flame. Let me know in the comments below if you read that book. I've seen a lot of people say that it felt rushed and that it doesn't really make any sense and it was a complete letdown after reading Fourth Wing. So I'm a little nervous to start this series, but I'm also very excited and I can't wait. I probably will read Fourth Wing pretty early in the year. I want to see what the hype is about, especially since I've been dying for a really good fantasy book. I haven't read a fantasy series that has me like hooked and obsessed with the characters since ACOTAR by Sarah J Maas, and I'm just craving for a good fantasy series. So very excited, also nervous, also scared to start Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, but we're gonna do it. The next book that I want to read is The Way I Am Now by Amber Smith. This is the sequel to The Way I Used to Be, which I read this year, and I absolutely loved this book. I've talked about it a million times on my channel. It's a YA novel about a freshman in high school who was assaulted by her brother's best friend, and it follows her through her years in high school and how she copes with the assault. So good, incredibly sad at the same time, obviously, because the premise of the book in itself is really sad. But the sequel follows the same main character in college, and she gets a second chance with her high school boyfriend who was 10 out of 10 in the first book, and I just can't wait to see what she's up to. Even though I know she's not real, I just can't wait to see her thrive in this book. Well, hopefully she thrives by the end of it. I'm just really excited, so definitely going to read that in the new year. And if you haven't read The Way I Used to Be, please go read it. If you read any book recommendations from me, just go read that one, okay? Okay. Then we have the Once Upon a Broken Heart series by Stephanie Garber. I believe there are 3 books in this series. I read the first one this year and I really liked it, but I read Once Upon a Broken Heart before I read Caraval, so I didn't really get to appreciate the characters in Once Upon a Broken Heart. I wish I had read Caraval first, but with that being said, I did read the entire Caraval series this year and I fell in love with the Prince of Heart, Mr. Jax, and the Once Upon a Broken Heart series basically is his love story. I cannot wait to finish out this series now that I read Caraval, because like I said, Jax really stole the show for me in the Caraval series and I love him so much, so I can't wait to see what he gets up to. I definitely want to reread Once Upon a Broken Heart now that I've read the other series, because they do correlate. There are characters that make appearances in both books. Once Upon a Broken Heart is a YA fantasy, and the thing with Stephanie Garber's writing is that she writes the most beautiful fairy tale books. Her books literally feel like you're reading a fairy tale and it feels so magical. I do remember when I read Once Upon a Broken Heart, that was one thing I kept repeating, was that it felt so magical and it felt like I was reading a fairy tale. So I'm very excited to check out the other 2 books, and I've only heard great things. I'm so excited. The next book that I want to read is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Abby Jimenez has become a instant buy author for me. I have loved all the books I've read from her. I think I've only read like 3, but I've loved them all, and I'm so excited to continue exploring and reading her writing in the new year. Just for the Summer is actually going to be a new release for her. It comes out on April 2nd, 2024. I honestly have only read the first sentence of the synopsis and it had me hooked, so we're going to read the rest of the synopsis together. Justin has a curse, and thanks to a Reddit thread is now all over the internet. That sentence alone makes me think this is going to be the funniest book ever. Every woman he dates goes on to find their soulmate the second they break up. When a woman slides into his DMs with the same problem, they come up with a plan. They'll date each other and break up. Their curses will cancel each other's out, and they'll both go on to find the love of their lives. It's a bonkers idea, and it just might work. Emma hadn't planned that her next assignment as a traveling nurse would be in Minnesota, but she and her best friend agree that dating Justin is too good of an opportunity to pass up, especially when they get to rent an adorable cottage on a private island. It's supposed to be a quick fling just for the summer, but when Emma's toxic mother shows up and Justin has to assume guardianship of his 3 siblings, they suddenly are navigating a lot more than they expected, including catching real feelings for each other. What if this time fate has actually brought the perfect pair together? Doesn't that sound like it's going to be the cutest book ever? I'm so excited. I love her writing, and the fact that this is going to be such a good book to read in the summer, to take with me to the beach or to lay out by the pool and read this, I'm just excited for all the good vibes. Then we have the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. I actually read Throne of Glass earlier this year, I think back in April. I honestly don't remember much about it. I think I gave it 3 stars. I wasn't totally impressed, but since I read it, I've seen this book also take the internet by storm. I've seen so many people talk about this series. I know that it went viral a few years ago, and I think it went viral again this year. I might be mistaken, but the amount of people I've seen talking about Throne of Glass is crazy. Like, I don't remember people talking about this book this much last year, but you know what? I really loved A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, so I need to read the rest of the series. I don't know how many books are in this series. Is this series even finished? I have no idea, but it is one of my reading goals to finish out this series, and I'm very excited. I hope it has a special place in my heart right next to A Court of Thorns and Roses. No fantasy series has been able to top that series for me, so we'll see how it goes. Then we have Daydream by Hannah Grace. You guys, this is the third book from the Icebreaker series. I don't think that's the name of the series, but the first book in the series is called Icebreaker. I read Icebreaker in January of this year. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I will say my book preferences have changed since reading Icebreaker. I'm not really a huge fan of reading hockey romances anymore. They all have felt too similar to me, so I'm not a huge fan. I didn't read the second book that came out this year in this series, but I will read this third book because it follows my favorite character, a character I fell in love with the first book, Henry. That's all I have to say. I loved his character so much. I think I filmed myself reading Icebreaker, or I mentioned it during my end of the month wrap up, but I fell in love with Henry. He stole the show for me in Icebreaker, and I'm so excited that he's finally getting his own book. Honestly, I think he should have gotten the second book, but you know what? Who am I to tell author how and when to write books, you know? The fact is that we're finally getting his book in the new year, and I'm hella excited. I literally cannot wait. His character is perfect. He was so cute. I love him so much. This next book is by Miss Ali Hazelwood. It's called Bride. It comes out in February. I loved The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, but then she came out with Love on the Brain, and I absolutely hated that book with a passion. I was so incredibly bored. It felt like a knockoff of The Love Hypothesis. I feel like I'm in the minority because whenever I see someone talk about Love on the Brain, they love it. I just didn't, but I do want to give her writing a second chance because, like I said, I loved The Love Hypothesis. I actually reread that book this year and still gave it 5 stars. I'm just scared, okay? I don't know. I feel like I've been traumatized by Love on the Brain. I'm so dramatic, but that's literally how I feel. But Bride is very unique from her other books. It actually isn't a STEM romance. It's a romance between a vampire and a werewolf. So listen to this. A dangerous alliance between a vampire bride and an awful werewolf becomes a love deep enough to sink your teeth into in this new paranormal romance. Doesn't that sound so different from all of her other books? That's why I'm so excited about it. One, because it's a paranormal romance, and I'm kind of into those, especially after reading Layla by Colleen Hoover. So I'm very excited for this release. I know it's going to be completely different from her other books. Her writing's probably going to be very different, but that's why I'm so intrigued, because I'm craving something different from Ali Hazelwood, and I feel like this is it. Another series that I really want to finish in 2024 is the Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I think this series is completed. I read the first book, loved it. If you're unfamiliar with it, it is a YA series. It's kind of like Criminal Minds, but teenagers, and it's very intriguing. It has the same mystery solving appeal that the Inheritance Games series had by her, and I loved the Inheritance Games. So I do want to finish off this series, and I've heard really good things about it. So one of my goals for 2024 is to definitely finish out this series. Next we have Hunting Adeline. Hunting Adeline is the second book by H.D. Carlton. So the first book is Haunting Adeline, the second book is Hunting Adeline, and I read Haunting Adeline this month, and honestly I'm still trying to process that book. I felt very traumatized. I'm not even joking. Like, that book took me for a ride, and I still don't know what to really say about it. I don't know if I hated it or if I loved it. Like, I'm still trying to figure it out. But I do want to read the sequel because the first book ended in a cliffhanger, but I'm not quite ready to read the sequel this month because the first book was so dark, and I've heard that the second book is even darker. So I need to prep myself mentally to read the second book in the series. I don't want to read such a dark book right before Christmas. You know, I want the good festive holiday vibes right now, and that series is just not it. So I'm going to wait till the new year to read the second book. Then we have The Fury by Alex Michaelides. I never know how to pronounce his last name. I'm so sorry. He is the author of The Silent Patient, which I read last year. I absolutely loved. It was a thriller that was very slow, but I loved it so much, and I didn't see the ending coming at all. It took me by complete surprise. So it's definitely one of the best thrillers I've read, and he has a new book coming out, and it sounds like it's going to be so good. It's a murder mystery. It kind of reminds me of the game and movie Clue, how there's a group of people who are basically getting hunted by a killer, and they have to figure out who the killer is. And I think the group of friends are stuck on an island, so very Clue vibes, and I am just very excited to dive back into his writing and to see how this book pans out. Really haven't read any other book from him, which I don't know why I haven't. I definitely need to read more of his books, but I'm excited about this one. The next book is Gray After Dark. This is another instant buy author for me. I read 3 or 4 of her thrillers this year and absolutely loved all of them, and she hasn't even released a picture picture or a synopsis of this book, but I am so ready to read it. She did tease that it comes out in March of 2024, so I'm just ready. I love her writing. She writes the best thrillers. She has you at the edge of her seat with her books, and you never see her twist coming or the ending coming. So I'm very, very, very excited to read this one. I have no idea what it's going to be about, but I'm going to buy it regardless. And then we have a book by an author that honestly has a soft spot in my heart. I read 2 of her books this year, absolutely loved it. I love her writing. Her writing makes me feel like I'm in a romantic comedy movie, and it's just so sweet, so cute. And she has a new book coming out, Happily Never After, Ms. Lynn Painter, and this is a synopsis of the book. It sounds so funny, and I'm so ready for it. When Zoe finds out before her wedding that her fiance cheated again, she desperately employs the mysterious Max to yell, "I object," at the altar. On the big day, Zoe sees a gorgeous stranger stand up and tell the entire congregation the truth about the cheating groom, blowing the ceremony apart. Enjoying the thrill from the aftermath of being saved from her own wedding, Zoe agrees to work together with Max as a love cynic duo. When they're both hired for a wedding by a groom who happens to be marrying the woman that broke Max's heart many years ago, Zoe sees Max wrestle with his feelings and is struck by her own jealousy. Doesn't that sound really cute and like it's going to be hilarious? I cannot wait. Hopefully it's not spicy and it's wholesome. That's why I really like Lynn Painter's writing, because for the books that I've read from her, they're so wholesome and clean and just funny, good vibes. So I really hope that this one isn't smut. Hopefully not. We'll see. Then we have the rest of the Ritual series. I'm actually currently in the middle of book 1. This is a dark college romance. It is not for the faint of heart, I will say that much. The male main character is not your typical cinnamon roll hero. He is involved in a secret society and he does some shady ass shit, but honestly this first book in the series has been so entertaining and I haven't been able to put it down. I have stayed up late reading this book. I literally started it yesterday and I stayed up late and I'm about 75% done with it already, and there's like 600 pages in this book. That's how much I've been loving it. I don't agree with anything that's going on in this book, but it's so freaking entertaining and I just can't stop reading it. And I'm very excited to check out the rest of the books in the new year, probably in January, because if they're all like this first book, I am going to read them back to back and have a good old time, because these books are very dark and they're heavy on the smut, but honestly I don't even care about all that. I care about how entertaining it is. It feels like I'm watching a movie. I love it. And then in 2024, I just want to read books out of my comfort zone. I know this is a very vague statement and it's not an actual book to put on my TBR, but I think I did a really good job of getting out of my comfort zone in 2023, and I want to continue that in the new year. I want to read from authors that I've never read before, never even heard of before. If you would have told me at the beginning of 2023 that I'd be a dark romance girly, I would have laughed like, you're insane. But now I'm a dark romance girly and I've been reading so many dark romances, so many mafia romances. I'm kind of here for them. I wouldn't have discovered my obsession for dark romance had I not gone out of my comfort zone. And a lot of the books that I rated highly this year were books that were out of my comfort zone and that I normally wouldn't have picked up before. So I definitely want to continue that in the new year. Those are all the books that I want to read in 2024. This is my little TBR list, I guess. I have no idea when I'm going to read these books, but I think it would be fun to reflect on this video at the end of 2024 and to see how many of the books that I mentioned in this video I actually read. Let me know in the comments below what books you plan on reading in 2024. Are you planning on reading any of the books that I mentioned in this video? I would love to know. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Really hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you did, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. I would love to have you a part of my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.